everybody. Welcome to another Tipsy Tagalong live podcast. I'm Gary Moore with Journey More Often, and with us we have today Kyle Jones of the Acadian Wine Company. It's been a while. We've tried to make this thing happen a couple of times, and finally we're able to do the live part of the podcast. So before we get started, I want to do the public service announcement, get it out of the way. Hey, everybody, it's important to have fun while you drink, but it's also important to drink responsibly. Don't drink and drive. Don't drink and do anything stupid. Just have fun and drink. And then, if you need an Uber or Lyft, get one, because it doesn't work out well. So anyway, that's out of the way. Kyle, this is a gorgeous day, right?
Beautiful.
I mean, it's like 76 degrees out here. It's September. Got a little breeze coming in our direction.
And some airplanes above head.
Got an airplane. Give us a little
chirping.
feedback.
Yeah, it's a fun day. We're in harvest season. Not me quite yet. I have lots of colleagues that have started to harvest their grapes. My first harvest will be probably next week. Chardonnay out there.
Yep.
I've been contending with deer a lot this season. So,
Oof, there's a lot of deer here.
Yeah, a lot
in
of
this
deer.
area.
I don't have any fences, and I'm surrounded by corn, and so they get their fill on corn. Then they get a nice dessert in the grapevine.
Yeah, because it's not fermented yet. They can't really get drunk out there. But
that's for sure. Yes.
But on the other hand,
grapes responsibly as well.
It's tough. Exactly, they drink responsibly. But that's a good point that you bring up. You haven't started harvest yet because different grapes harvest at different times.
That's correct.
And
yeah.
different fields harvest at different times.
Very
So
much.
it really does depend on the grape, the field, the weather of that year. All of that determines when you actually harvest. So
Very much, yeah. And every year is a little bit different, and so you have to pay attention and stay engaged throughout the growing season. It's
right.
fun.
Right, and you've got a great location here, and you picked this up from, it used to be Kreutz Creek.
Yeah,
Or Kreutz Creek.
For over 25 years. It was owned and operated by a couple. They called it Kreutz Creek Vineyards, and they had established up to 7.5, 8 acres of vines, 3 of which I have left. I've done some replanting and things, and have to rebuild the architecture for those vines
Right.
because they were so old and kind of left derelict for a second. And so it's been cool to kind of reinvigorate it and start getting fruit off of it again.
Yeah, that's when you start that first fruit, it's a pretty good feeling because you're like, oh, I was successful to replant and get it done, right?
That's for sure. Yeah.
So, and 25 years is a long time to have a vineyard, and as you can see in the background, that we've got the vineyard in the background. There's vineyard over there. There's probably 40 seats on this deck. We're on the end of the deck, so you didn't need to see all the seats, but there's probably 40 seats here. There's seats down at the bottom. There's plenty of room. There's probably another 60 seats inside.
Not quite, but yeah, we've got plenty of room to accommodate people to come and enjoy the scenery as well as the wines, because some of the wines that we're about to taste aren't even grown here, because I source a lot of grapes from around the great state of Pennsylvania for viticultural purposes. Like there's certain varieties that do well in certain areas. And here, like I mentioned, there's been some reconstruction, and so we do all kinds of events, whether they're self-programmed or private. We've got space for people to just come and enjoy the wine and learn about it, and have whatever other kind of conversation or festivities that they might like. Right.
And there are events that happen here, which is pretty cool. There's events inside, there's events outside. You have bands, right? I think you have bands.
Yeah, last Saturday we had a jazz band out for an evening. Often on Saturdays during the day, I have somebody playing guitar or a couple of people doing some form of entertainment. Sometimes we partner with local restaurants or a local chef and offer a nice coursed out dining experience in a picturesque scene as opposed to just a really nice dining room somewhere. And then people also say, hey, I'd like to host this type of event. And as long as we're here, at the setting, they get a little bit of education about the wine. They get to taste all the wines, and then they get to privatize space to do whatever it might be that they would like to do.
Excellent. So let's get started on the first wine, and then we'll talk about all the wines because you have quite a selection of wines. If you go inside, every wine that they have is lined up on the countertop.
On the bar there, on the countertop, we've got think 13, 14 wines right now.
Yeah.
That's something that I should know, but it's whenever you're working for other people's brands, sometimes you have 10, sometimes you have 26.
Yeah, that's true.
For
That's true.
now, I have these 13 or so. And yeah, we're going to start with light, floral, and fruit forward, but still textural Sauvignon Blanc.
Ooh, yeah, let's do this. Yeah, and you can tell what time of year it is because the yellow jackets are enjoying the sugar, whatever sugar they can find. And,
yeah, they won't find any sugar in these. But
and
they like the
well,
smell
no,
for
and
sure.
they like
And the
to
grapes.
get drunk.
Well, they're out cleaning off the grapes. Honestly, like,
Yeah.
when the birds take their little pecks, there's other insects that come behind and kind of clean out, which is kind of nice because I've got a week or two before harvest, and to have a pecked berry just kind of sitting there rotting in the sun, it can affect the berries on either side of it.
That's interesting.
And so there's yellow jackets that come in and just clean out the juice and the pulp from the inside, and it dries out the skin, and it doesn't affect the rest of the grapevines.
Yeah.
And so I've really tried to get away from pesticide use for certain reasons. Like there's lots of birds above head that eat the bugs, and then there's helpful bugs in the vineyard. Trying to keep a covered vineyard floor for the purpose of soil health and soil maintenance.
Exactly.
It's cool to be an all ideal minded. It's an ecosystem that we're building here. It's not just
Right.
a commercial operation for fruit production.
Which is crazy because when we've had our American Wine Journey episodes, we've talked about that. A vintner isn't just a vintner. A vintner has to know everything. A vintner has to know geology.
I just dabble in these.
Yeah, yeah. Well, no, but you have to learn enough for your vineyard, right? So in order to make the
it's a
make
process.
the plants,
You can't stop either,
Right.
which is neat. There's always a new variable. Mother Nature's always keeping you on your toes. Consumer trends change. Viticulturally, things move slowly because it's years working on top of years of work. Mm-hmm. You plant a vine, you get your first fruit off of it in the first couple of years. It's not an immediate thing, and then you need root systems to develop and partner with the geology and the mesoclimatic environment to produce a vineyard that is going to give back to you at a rate that is consistent and is you can count on to a certain degree. And so that plus all of the hospitality and the science and voodoo that goes on in a wine cellar.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get caught telling people that wine is as complex as you want to make it because there are so many variables.
Yeah.
To keep it interesting and keep it a lot of fun, and it, as you can see, it lends itself to a story.
Very much so. And we'll be offering college credits on geology later on. All right. So tell us about this Sauvignon Blanc.
I cheated. Cheers. Thanks for coming out.
Yeah.
I already stole a sip. This Sauvignon Blanc is grown just over the border. I source pretty much exclusively Pennsylvania fruit, except when it's 20, 30 miles away. So this was grown along the Bohemian Manor River. Mm-hmm. And my setup here is a little bit old school. I do work in other people's wineries and produce wines in other people's wineries for this brand that have slightly different equipment setups. And so that's all part of terroir in the old school sense.
Absolutely.
It's determinant on the where you're growing, how you're growing it, how you're processing it, how you're presenting it. It's all part of the experience. And so this is a white wine that I wanted to treat very just kind of almost rustically, but in a way that was delicate and tried to express everything. It's a new plot of grapes that I'm working with. I've never worked with fruit from that vineyard. And so depending on the timing of everything, I macerated the grapes to see what kind of aromatics and what kind of textures come out of that bit of skin contact during fermentation, primary fermentation. It was just bring them in, destem them, squish them, let them sit overnight while they come up to temperature. Some fermentation is going to start happening, which is fine. They were really clean. Right. They were really nice. Some secondary microbial activity is fine as long as we have the fungi and the yeast that'll produce enough alcohol to kind of clean that beverage and make it something that's going to stick around for a long time. There's a difference between just kind of the different types of fermentations you can have. And so it's fun to see what it comes in with, and then it's also fun to be able to drive the ship a little bit. And
right.
So let it go for 2 days, and then squeeze the grapes and express the juice, and then let that finish out and clarify just naturally by gravity. As you can see, it's got some of that texture from the skin contact time. Mm-hmm. Some funny things happen with acid when you macerate juice and grapes. You get some of the potassium ions that come out of the soil that sometimes make acid fluctuations happen during fermentation and then afterwards, storing it in a cellar that it might go through secondary maceration. And so we have a nice bright acidity, but it's not sour, and it's not round and flat, because we have a complex of floral and texture as well as the great fruitiness that comes from Sauvignon Blanc, whether it be like a green apple or a white grapefruit, which is I kind of call it. This one kind of has the tartness of a Meyer lemon as well. And so you want to present a wine that's balanced, but also can show you where it's come from, where it's made out of, or what it's made from, and not just be something that you can sip and say, oh, that's nice.
Right. Well, it is something you can sip and say, oh, that's nice, but it's actually a lot different than a lot of the Sauvignon Blancs. You know, it's got a really nice crispy flavor to it. It's I'm assuming it's not oaked.
No, yeah, no.
Yeah.
Lots of surleys.
Got lucky on that one.
And so aged on top of the dead yeast, and those are lifted into suspension about once a month, and it creates some body, some creaminess, some elevative qualities that blend the acid and the fruit profile, kind of fill it out.
It's really good. Okay, so what would you recommend eating with this if you're going to eat something with it?
It does well with different types of salads. I know we're coming into the fall. We're coming into the fall, and so bright, crispy salads with fresh fruit on them aren't necessarily the fare, but we're coming into lots of fresh or gazpacho type dishes. The fruits and the vegetables of the summer season. There's lots of squash dishes and cucumber and beet salads and all those types of things. Those aperitif type things would go really well with this.
Okay. Yes. So I'm just thinking, that there's the corn salad with black-eyed, not black-eyed peas, beans with a
chickpeas.
Kind of chickpeas. Anyway, so there's also I was just trying to add, and miserable fail on that one, but
no, it's all right. I had this with some chicken and tzatziki the other day, and it was wonderful.
So lighter fare, but yet,
or like a ceviche dish. I mean,
that sounds good.
Like it's not a beef stew or like even like I don't think that this would go very well with a split pea soup or something like that. Something that you might cook up in the fall. Maybe something a little bit on the lighter side of that. To really highlight, we did a dinner here, I guess a month ago, and this was a great addition to the beginning half of the menu, which is usually those lighter, those fresher, those uncooked type things.
So if you don't mind asking, what restaurant did you pair up with for that?
That was the one that I'm speaking of was with Sweet Amelia's of Kennett Square.
Yes.
They're in their second
locally
year.
owned and operated restaurant. Much. They're pretty cool.
Yeah, they grew up around Kennett Square and then went off and did culinary school and got to travel and gain experience and then come back and raise a family and start a restaurant. And I just I sell ambiance and good wine and to pair food with it every once in a while. It's really special to find somebody who knows how to exploit the local produce and the local in that case proteins. We highlighted some American Wagyu that was grown in town.
Okay.
And so that's all the point. What grows together goes together. And if you're practicing viticulture or agriculture in any way, you get to experience certain things that don't travel well, and so being able to bring that all together here was wonderful.
Oh, that's cool. That's a great idea, and we try to promote locally owned and operated because that's the literal bread and butter in some cases of this country, or of any country, to be honest with you. When you're looking at it, the national brands can be the national brands, but on the other hand, you're not going to get a Sauvignon Blanc like this from a national brand. It's going to be tougher.
Well, yeah, I mean, just manufacturing wine to be able to travel those types of distances and exposed to certain extremes is a whole nother way of producing wine. Right. I've done that. Like I've made a lot of wines that are distributed throughout grocery stores and state systems and sit in warehouses for 4 or 5 years and then are put on trucks and sent places and sit on a shelf and in the sunlight for another 6 to 12 months. And so you have to make sure that's an authentic product, but also one that can survive that journey. Whereas sometimes in having the smaller more intimate experience as a winemaker, I get to produce and offer things here at a certain place at a certain time that aren't supposed to travel well, But if you
Right.
take from my cellar to your cellar and forget about it, leave it in the proper conditions, like any wine cave might back in
Right.
the
Right.
day, below 60 degrees, no more than 10%, or not even 10%, like 10 degrees of temperature variation, and just let the wine sit. It's just like having it down in a barrel down in the subterranean layer
Yeah.
below the tasting room. And that wine will last for 10, 12, 15, 30 years, hopefully, if we do our job correctly. But, we don't have to worry about the aforementioned variables. And so we get to make wine a little bit different and offer an experience in place.
So with that, most people don't have the availability to keep it under a controlled environment.
Yeah, not
So
necessarily. There is some privilege in that.
right. So if you're buying this, you're going to want to you're going to want to drink it not fast, but in 6 months or so. Is a good, I think, a good metric, because if you're going to sit it out on the countertop and you're some days you don't feel like using the air conditioning, well, it's going to wear a little differently, right? That's just wine.
Yeah, as in all things, you buy certain things at the, potatoes. They can last in a root cellar if you don't clean them, right?
Yeah.
And they last for a long, long time. Whereas wine, if you make it the old-fashioned way, just in some barrels and some tanks, and it's stayed at one temperature its entire life, and then you put it in a bottle, and then you go and you sit it out on the sun.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be certain effects that happen. Light and chemical reactions happen faster.
Exactly.
With at certain temperatures, and we try and produce a product that's living, but will also, it's like anything, kept under the correct conditions. Things can last a long time.
Yeah, and that's why we have a first floor that it has half of the floor is underground and half of it is daylight, and in the windows we put blockout shades
Okay.
to to keep the sun from coming in.
Yeah. Yeah. If you live in an apartment, it's hard to keep wine. I used to live in Philadelphia, up on the 11th floor, and
Oh yeah,
you have to have a wine fridge if you want to keep a certain temperature and humidity.
yeah. Well, that kind
People who
of
do it
works.
with cigars, they have their humidors and things
Yeah,
like that.
yeah, of course, of course.
And
But most of us aren't. You know what I mean? Most
No,
of us
yeah.
don't. We just can't. We're just going to buy one and drink it. Buy one and drink it.
Yeah.
So, and this was really great, by the way. Shall we move on to? Oh, and you can see what they are on the label here. On
Yeah,
the
this is
outside.
how we present flights. People can come in and taste any of the wines that they would like to taste. We serve them in an ounce and a half portion, and it's also portable. I like these little carrier things.
Yeah, they're easy to carry, and you don't have to worry about like dropping it. Well, dropping it, yes, but you don't have to worry about spilling like individual little
Sure.
glasses.
Yeah, I have stairs. People like to wander, and I like to, let them be able to bring their wine to them. It demonstrates that
Yeah.
they're drinking responsibly if they can make it through all the obstacles that I set in their way.
And if they get, the important thing is if they can make it back again, I think, right?
Something like that.
So there's a test, right? If you're, no, not really.
No.
There's no test here. All right, so this is the rosé, right?
Yeah, we've got a beautiful provincial rosé. It smells like strawberries and honeysuckles, and
It does.
it's Chambourcin, which is a grape that grows predominantly in the east coast of the United States. It's a French-American hybrid. It's cold hardy. It's relatively disease resistant. Produces a good quality fruit, between 3 and 5 tons an acre, depending on how
Wow.
dense it's planted. It produces a lot of color. It's got a lot of anthocyanin in the skins. They're not as stable as some other varieties. There's some proteins that like to make them turn red as opposed to stay nice and purple as they are. But the juice is actually tinted. The pulp has pigment to it, and so when you squeeze the Chambourcin grape, you get a really beautiful pink color. Whereas most red grapes, you get a white juice, and you have to use some of the skin contact to get that color. This is just a fun local grape, French American hybrid, kind of like the namesake of the company, and it produces a really nice provincial rosé. And a lot of people that don't like Chambourcin, they say, "Hey, this is kind of fantastic."
So Chambourcin is its own thing. A lot of people either like it or don't like it. But on the other hand, in this rosé, it's a nice flavor profile. It does add a lot to the rosé group, if you will. So people make rosés out of all sorts of things.
A lot of times it's a byproduct of the red making process.
Yeah.
You concentrate your red fermentations by taking off some of the free run juice that's got some color to it, but isn't necessarily harvested early just for rosé. This is a little bit of both, just freshly squeezed Chambourcin and then a small percentage of some Saunier from some red ferments. But yeah, it really produces a really combination between the new and the old school rosé. I think of the provincial rosé as having a lot of nice roundness and some minerality and maybe even some salinity to it. And then the new world being very fruit forward and very, very bright, very tart. Whereas this kind of meets in the middle. It has a rounder, kind of sweeter fruit profile, but it's not one-dimensional in that way.
Right. It has some sweetness to it, but it's not overly sweet, so to speak.
Yeah, and it's just coming from the flavor of the grape.
So what year is this one? I forgot to ask you what year
That's a 22.
This is a 22, and then
as is the Sauvignon Blanc.
Okay, so both of the first two are 2022s. Yeah, okay, so that's what would you? Oh, I just lost that.
We gotta have
Hold on.
lose equipment to save the napkin. In the background, you might we haven't acknowledged the bird squawker. I wonder how that's coming over the microphone. It keeps the starlings and the robins from eating the grapes. It's just a squawker that goes 8 different birds in distress.
I actually haven't heard it yet.
No, I hear it very faintly through here.
Yeah.
The customers always remark at it. They're like, "Listen to that wild bird off into the distance," and then they hear the same thing every 15 minutes.
So you will hear it mostly in the distance. All right. So what would you recommend eating with this? What kind of food would you throw out here?
This is rosé, and on the menu we call it summer water. And so when the temperature is above 65 degrees, whatever the heck you want to eat with it.
Okay, so it's very flexible in its profile.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you can do the very finessed, similar to the Sauvignon Blanc crudo or delicate fish or cold preparations, or put it down next to a cheeseburger and some fries, because it's got enough fruit, it's got enough acid, it's got enough to it that you'll love the rosé with no matter what you're eating. And so you take it wherever you want to go when you're trying to enjoy the beautiful weather.
it does seem, in tasting it, it does have that, it does have that flavor that it seems to go well with a lot of things.
Yeah, to go well with a lot of things, you need acid, and then you need flavor to back up that, because the acid is going to push the dough open. That's why I say, like, even something fatty like a cheeseburger, you need that acid to cut through the fat and the mouth coating. And then if you have some really expressive, protected volatiles coming behind in the form of the fruit flavor, then it can stand on its own and can accentuate whatever you've got going on in front of you.
Well, that is fantastic. I did enjoy that. That's really good. Shall we move on to?
Yeah, this is a red blend. This is the first red blend on the list. I have a combination of some varietals, which are just a single grape name, and then some others that are red blends. This is a red blend that is. It goes well like as a regular dinner wine, but it can also be chilled and offered just kind of during the day when you're sitting out on the deck and the sun is still hitting you in the face. It makes a really nice chilled wine because it hasn't been aged in oak at all, and so it really just kind of changes the taste profile and shifts the acid balance a little bit one way, brightens up certain fruit characteristics. Whereas when it's in that 65 to 75 degree range next to a dinner, you're getting texture, you're getting some of the floral aspects, as well as a deeper kind of less candied fruit profile.
Right. So, and that's one thing that a lot of people don't realize is that by refrigerating or by allowing something to go to room temperature, you can change that flavor and change that, in some cases it's significant.
Not necessarily flavor. I look at it more of a taste sensation balance.
Okay. All right.
Because the flavor comes from all the different organs that are in your nose and the back of your nasal passage, whereas the taste is like just the receptors that are feeling sour and sweet and bitter and all those things.
Okay.
In your mouth and on your tongue. And so temperature is what affects those the most. The aromatics as well. You have certain things volatilizing at certain temperatures, and so it will change the flavor in that way. but something like temperature is a lot more fun for me, just in changing that immediate hit.
Right.
of,
So what temperature would you say that this is, would make that differential? If you're going to chill it, what
yeah,
temperature?
go to 55 or 50 degrees in between there.
Okay.
Yeah, not too cold. A lot of the wines are white wines, rosé and Sauvignon Blanc, good at like 45 degrees. Your temperature in your fridge is usually about what, 40 to 45.
Mine for some reason is 37.
That's okay. Yeah.
It's really cold in my fridge. I have no idea why. But
Well, you put something in a glass, it changes temperature fairly rapidly.
yeah, right. Yeah, it does,
Yeah.
especially if it's outside too. And if you don't put it in a chilled bucket, then it's also going to change fairly quickly as well.
Yeah, we're getting into those variables where it's as complex as we want to make it.
Well, you mentioned that earlier, and this is one of those reasons why, right? It's
Yeah,
like-
and some people say that wine's not very approachable because we get into these weeds. It's just fun. We're sitting here talking about it and contemplating it, and it's at the end of the day, it's a very fun kind of hedonic experience.
But on the same token, we're deconstructing the mystification of wine, because a lot of
Yeah,
people,
you're an engineer, and so those types of variables are
Right.
very relevant in a lot of the other things that you do.
yeah, exactly. So when you look at the variables and you change the variables, it tastes different. Well, it doesn't taste different, like you said.
Yeah, it does.
It
Well,
changes.
Flavor changes, tastes different. Who
it,
cares?
It changes. It changes how your olfactory and senses receive it. That's all.
Depending on the day.
Yeah,
and phase of the moon.
right? Yeah. Well, yeah. There are so many things that I'd like to say there, but we'll leave that one alone. All right, so this is a fun one. Blends are actually pretty fun because what they also do is they can a lot of people like to try a blend because it's not specifically Chambourcin, it's not specifically
Cabernet Franc, Merlot.
yeah. So it's when you have a blend, it takes away from, okay, I don't like Cab Francs. Well, there's Cab Franc. I don't know if there is or not in this, but if a Cab Franc's in a
there
blend,
definitely is. Yeah. Well,
you're probably going to like the blend because it's a blend. It just takes it and makes it more acceptable on a more a global scenario for your taste buds. That is.
That's true, and I also make a differentiation between the blends and the single varietals in what the main takeaway is. So in this, it's very much, I present it as a stylistic wine, as opposed to the Petit Verdot that we'll taste next, which we're looking for more typicity in
Right.
expressing place and expressing all that is terroir. But it's also, we're naming a variety of grape, and
Right.
that is the primary overarching goal theme. Whereas this in a red blend, it's a chillable red in the way that it was made. It wasn't aged in French oak. In fact, it was bottled within 2 months of finishing primary fermentation, and it's a combination of 3 varietals from a well-known locally, but not a new, but not an old winemaking place in the Lake Erie corridor. And there's a very specific soil type. There's a very specific climate, and offering those varietals in this way allows us to navigate and explore a lot of different
Right.
variables because of the style of in which I approached it versus hey, these are Petit Verdot from the Lehigh Valley. I want to be very respectful of how they're expressing themselves, to be very authentic from those things. This is saying hey, there's also me having a bit more of a heavy hand in the production phase.
Right. Yeah, and that's pretty cool. So when you do that, you can control the outcome, basically.
Yeah, the intervention of putting a red wine in a bottle 2 months after primary fermentation is a wildly
That's
a wild move to make as far as nuance,
right.
right? And so we're going to capture certain things by doing that, where we're going to lose or be overshadowed by other things, putting it in an oak barrel for a year and a half.
Right. Right. That's significantly different.
Right. Yeah, and so we take it as far into the vineyard as that as well. How many trunks to have per vine, how to prune the vines, where to orient them on a field. These are all very intentional interventions that accumulate in the experience in the glass. And so it's all on balance. There's a lot of trends and whatnot within the winemaking marketing industry. All of those are for I guess my place is all of those trends and whatnot fall within a toolbox from which to to use in the work.
Right.
And so you can attribute certain things to a winemaking style. You can attribute certain things just to the expression of place or varietal.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. And then I feel like this is similar to the rosé in that it goes with a battery of foods.
It has similar
it's pretty versatile
characteristics.
with that. I mean, this taste offers you anything from Mexican food to, to. I think we've had this with Sake Hana.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's got similar characteristics. In order to
Yeah.
pair well, you need a complement of acid that isn't lacking.
Right.
And you need some brightness and flavor, namely, tart cranberries and tart raspberries, some herbaceousness from the methoxypyrazines in the Cabernet Franc.
Chemistry credits are later as well.
And so yeah, it's my favorite taco wine, now that you mention it, because we're blessed to live in a place with lots of very, very cool,
Very good tacos.
very, very good
Yeah.
tacos and gorditas and,
Yeah.
and riffs on quesadillas and sopes and all those types of things, which is essentially very, very spiced meat cooked over a fire or charcoal with some very fresh vegetable and or fresh sauce, complemented by a rice, or not a rice, a corn, a grilled charred corn.
Yes.
And so all of those textures and flavors and things have their own balance and their own exploitative characteristics, and a wine that represents in that, can throw itself in the mix
Right.
in that way is all the better, which is different than an old oaky tannic, very, very dried fruit profile of, say, very ripe Cabernet Sauvignon, which might go well with a taco, but it might crush a taco.
Right. Yeah. Well, and that's right. That's the whole thing. You're looking at it and going, okay, so what do I pair? And that's one of the things that American Wine Journey does is we pair foods with wines. But this, this goes with, I feel like it goes with a lot. Enchiladas, tacos,
Lamb.
Lamb.
Cabernet Franc, I always like pairing with lamb.
Yeah.
Cabernet Franc, Pinot Noir, the crunchy acidity,
This is-
it goes well with some of your stews, or like I mentioned, split pea soup ahead of
oh
time.
yeah.
Something smoky, like the Flying Dutchman comes. Sorry, I'm pointing off into the distance as
Yeah. Yeah.
but that's where he parks.
To where
He parks right there.
Yeah.
We put music here, there, or there, and he plays, and they play, and the Flying Dutchman serves authentic German cuisine, and he has a smoked pork chop that he does.
Yes.
With his sauerkraut, fermented cabbage, and or a side of potatoes or something like that. And a red like this, it complements really well with the smoked aspect
Yes.
of a fatty meat that is a pork chop, because it has some acidity, but it's also got some of those herbaceous and secondary characteristics that pair well with a smoked piece of meat.
Just so it's going to want to be the food is going to want to have enough boldness to it, so that this
Makes it versatile.
comes right in and it matches together. So, and yeah, those guys, the Flying Dutchman. Forgive me for saying this, but one time we came just for the Flying Dutchman.
Oh yeah, it's the
I mean,
most
we come
common-
here a fair
common
amount
thing.
anyway, but
I convince people to drink wine while they're eating Flying Dutchman food.
yeah, I mean, because they do. It
Because
can-
they come because they saw him online or whatnot. He's a fun guy.
Yeah, and yeah, they are actually a fun group. But what's interesting about them is that they have the schnitzel. Now, I've had schnitzel in Germany and Switzerland, and
Not
it's
had the privilege.
yeah, it's pretty close. So, and there's another place down in Maryland that we've eaten at too. But the Flying Dutchman is here like fairly often.
He's
I
a
think.
once a month type food
Yeah.
truck. There's also there's a lot of local food trucks, and part of just being a very nice picnic area is that we invite expect you to not have to bring your picnic all the time and
Exactly.
fly a food truck.
Exactly. And if there's not enough chairs, which there's like a ton of chairs here, but if
Easy
there's
on
not
the
enough, you could probably bring your own. I don't think anybody would complain.
Yeah, for evening concerts and things like that, it's a very routine
Yeah.
for people to spread out on the lawn.
Yeah,
and
you got a
bring
few
their own.
acres going on here, so you can definitely do that.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, the Flying Dutchman. Yeah,
On the roll.
I feel like we could,
Lobster rolls. Half of my family comes from Maine, and so I enjoy a good lobster roll.
Nice.
And so on the roll is a local food truck that they put a sign out by the yard, in the front yard, and it says lobster rolls, and people come in looking for lobster rolls, and we convince them to drink wine.
Well, why not, right?
Yeah, it goes
Wine.
well. Sauvignon Blanc,
sorry
the
about
Gruner
that.
Veltliner, it goes wonderful.
Yeah, right. So so with the schnitzel, we've got a lot. I feel like you could almost drink any of the first three with the schnitzel.
I would say so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, those three really, and the schnitzel has its own flavor, but any of those three you could. And so people need to know that because, when people are looking at, okay, so I'm drinking this wine and it's red wine, so I got to have steak or some sort of lasagna or something, so they don't realize how far you can expand that. Okay. And I think that's great. You say you invite people here for the food and, oh, here's the wine that goes with it kind of thing. I think
I'm being tongue in cheek most of the time.
Well,
People are coming
yeah.
just for the wine because I only have the food every once in a while, and it's fun that we get to do both. It's
Well-
really, really fun because same with the music. We're only going to pair things that contribute to the experience.
right.
We're not. There's nuance in everything.
Yeah.
And so it's fun to be able to pay attention to that, but also to be able to say, hey, come in as you are. We'll meet you with a good glass of wine and make sure that you're here to enjoy yourself. And we're available to give tours and get as nerdy as you want with all the things that we've been talking about. But at the end of the day, it's something that should be natural to just our human experience. It's literally people walk in, they say, "Oh, I feel like I'm in somebody's house." It's like, yeah, that's the point. Come in and
Right.
experience it as you will out, in the wild, wherever you might be. It's with friends, it's with family, it's in familiar places, it's on the road. If you go to meet people and you're experiencing something new, it's just part of the experience, and it's part of the beauty that we get to enjoy every day when we wake up.
Right. And so, you get to wake up and this is.
Drink responsibly. You don't need to wake up to a glass of wine, but every Saturday or Sunday, if you want to have a mimosa with your brunch, it's just part of the culture.
Yeah. And so it's a great place. What we, our tagline is enjoy life, journey more often, right? And so it's a great place to do that because you can relax. I mean, this is, we're just sitting here and it's like a gorgeous
Gary comes in the
day.
front door with his cooler and says, "Hey, we're going to hang out for a couple hours." Hey, by all means.
Yeah, sometimes that happens, right? Sometimes that happens. So I will say the only thing that's not a typical house scenario inside is the paintings, the artwork that you have. You support local artists. I love that.
Yeah,
right?
lots of local resident artists get to display their beautiful works of art on the walls inside. I had just finished painting them. I flipped an open sign on the door. People started coming in, and I had some folks ask me, "Hey, what are your plans with these big walls?" I said, "Well, I painted them. It would be nice to have some big ass canvases on them."
Yeah.
And they said, "Oh, we know somebody." And so relationships happen, as they need to. And I was fortunate to link up with some local professors as well as some local very talented professional artists. And they treat some of the walls inside as a professional gallery. They rotate pieces in and out.
It really is. It almost looks like a professional gallery. Those and the artwork in there is insanely good.
Oh yeah, I love to look at it. I don't claim to know everything about it. It's fun to have the artists in to talk about it very often. At the end of September this month, we'll fill this field with at least 30 different tents of different of the same people and different artisans and artists, and you get to come and meet them.
So
and you
that's
get to
cool.
Learn about their pieces of art and buy them directly from them, and it's all it's all part and parcel to what we do on a daily basis.
Right, and so it's all about supporting and
What
and,
grows together
and,
goes together,
and
including art, eh?
and encouraging. Yeah, and it's all encouraging. When's that date again? So that people know.
September 28th and 29th. There will be music on the deck like we normally have. There'll be somebody selling food in the parking lot from a mobile food vendor. There will be a field full of tents and artisans and
So it's 2 days. It's the whole weekend.
A field full of red grapes. And yeah, it's 2 days, Saturday and Sunday. It worked out really well last year. It was very popular. This is the second time we're doing it.
That's fantastic.
It's pretty chill. We're not the state fair.
No, but I bet you get a pretty good group.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful. It's lovely.
shows up.
There's over 30 people exhibiting. They always bring a couple people each.
Yeah.
We get our normal fall crowd that comes through, and then it's a lovely way to, for people that need, that are coming out more of a distance, create more of an experience as opposed to coming in and meeting somebody and just doing a tasting and moving along.
Yeah, because everybody's, it's funny because when you buy a house, you fill it with furniture and blah, 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 and all that. But the artwork is specific, right? You want to put specific artwork in your house. And this would be a great place to just kind of peruse and go through. You got
That's
30
what that looks
different
like
artists,
on
right?
this wall facing this direction.
Yeah, and
light. Sure, it's absolutely.
Yeah, so that would be so cool.
In the furniture stores, they make it. They make settings. They place. You have to envision yourself in the setting.
Right, and because people are visual, they like to see it. And, when they see an actual painting or a print or, however it's presented, they see that and they go, that would look great over the, the couch, or, we could put this in a hallway going up the stairs kind of thing. And so, so that's September 28th and 29th. So that if you're looking for artwork, or if you just want to window shop artwork, come on out and have a glass of wine and enjoy that for sure. Should we move on to number 4?
Sure thing.
Are we ready for that?
Yeah, we already plugged it before. And
did we? Oh, we did plug it.
I was
Petite
talking about
Verdot.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, you got a little. Yeah, so we might as well taste it since you've already plugged it. I love a good Petite Verdot.
It's a variety that does well in this zip code, in this geology. It's warmer down here.
And geography.
Yeah, it's warmer
both.
down here than
Both,
this comes from the Lehigh Valley, and so we're at about similar elevation, but we're a couple hours south. There's a little bit of buffer from the ocean, keeping it a little bit drier, and the soils are very rocky. They're like crushed rock piles back here.
Yeah.
And so it makes planting things kind of difficult, but it makes viticulture kind of ideal. Well draining, retains the heat during the summer.
Mm-hmm.
We get heat during the summer. We talked about Lake Erie for the Red Bone blend.
Right.
They'll seldom have a day over 85 degrees.
Wow.
This year in July, we had 2 weeks where every day we were over 90 degrees.
I think we had August and July this year.
Something like that, yeah. And so you're able to compensate for a shorter growing season per se, because we're not letting certain varieties go all the way to past Halloween. Sometimes we just get a lot of disease pressure from the elevation and humidity. We're getting into very beautiful evenings. We're down into the 50s at night, high 70s, sometimes high 80s during the day. The diurnal shift is good for accumulating ripeness in the vineyard and preserving acidity. And so we get to speak as if we're out in the high desert of California a little bit. Normally it'll fluctuate, like during the hot, humid summers. We'll get into September and October, and it'll be 65 degrees at night. It'll be 80 to 85 degrees during the day, and it'll be between 75% and 100% humidity. Not the best viticultural conditions for canopy management, because you get a lot of downy mildew and powdery mildew and the foliar fungi that like to attack sugary things, and so it becomes a race to get the grapes off the vine during those types of years. But having the aspect of the soil, the longer days, the higher heat days, the full sun exposure helps us produce really nice reds, and also some, like I have a neighbor, you know him quite well. He's experimenting with Albarino over in Kimblesville at 17 Kimblesville,
yeah,
1723. And so it's fun to see the nuance in the different growing regions, but also be able to say, hey, I'm going to go pick up some Petite Verdot. I know it does well here because I grow it here, from some of my friends more inland, and see how it gets down.
Right. Ooh, this is, again, I'm a sucker for a good Petite Verdot. Yeah,
it's often blended in the old school in the French wines. It produces a lot of one-dimensional fruit character and a lot of color, and so it does well in blends with things that are expressing more herbaceousness or need a little bit of pick-me-up in color.
Mm-hmm.
And here we have just that nuanced climate, like that we get to offer it in a varietal. I do use some blending fractions from different barrels of mostly it's a varietal, but it's only 85% Petit Verdot because there's some blending fractions in there for longevity, and also just to express it in a more holistic way that lets the Petit Verdot-ness shine of it. My winemaker take on it.
There you go. And then, so what would you think would be a good food with this?
Red meat dishes, braised dishes.
There you go.
This made a great steak wine because unless you're eating filet, a lot of steak has a lot of fat to it as well.
Yes.
People really like ribeyes and the New York strips and whatnot. It does really well with like very savory mushroom dishes. I eat meat. Sorry to only be commenting on that side of the spectrum. But on the other side, you can have some very savory, very spiced, very vegan only dishes. You incorporate a lot of different flavors and textures, and this is a wine that can stand up to that kind of oomph as well. So and having a darker berry profile.
Yeah.
Like it lends itself to spiced, to savory, to earthy dishes to kind of counterbalance that.
It is sort of earthy. Now that the finish is kind of hitting me as almost earthy.
Yeah, it gets part of that from the oak. It gets part of that from
right.
the tannins that are in it. It's still young. It's 22 vintage, and so it's only been released for less than 8 months now. And so it'll continue to evolve in the bottle
yes.
As it kind of coalesces and comes together. Being a new winery, young winery, old vines, old place, young winery. I don't mind offering some bottles that are still grippy and still tight and still showing some of their youthful personality, because it's a new audience, and so it's like, hey, you want to show your chops first. Then build up some inventory, get some extra, hyper local fruit and whatnot, and be able to have those waiting in the wings, and offer after this.
Yeah. So, I just had something in my mind, and I lost it.
Give it 5 minutes.
Yeah. So yeah, as soon as we end the episode, the podcast, I'll remember. But no. So this offer. Oh, that's what I wanted. So you're saying, and a lot of times people don't realize it. So there's this balance between, okay, when do I drink it out of the bottle? How long do I keep it? You can't keep it. There are some that you can keep for years, and there are others that you can't keep for years. But if you had to estimate on this particular batch, when do you think it would peak in the bottle? Is that a tough question? Should I have not asked that question?
No, it's something that I contemplate. But then when you put it on tape, you gotta stay down.
Okay, so don't hold him accountable for this, because it is. So a lot of that's difficult because
I think that'll hit a spot where I'll be like, ooh, yeah, that was worth the wait at 5-6 years.
Okay, so we're talking somewhere between 26 and 28. 27, 28?
Yeah, it was in the cellar for 14 months, and so that's predating, ageability, and so do it from
bottling.
Yeah, bottling, which was winter of 24 plus 6, so we're looking at
2030. Okay, there you go. So if you can do it, you come out and buy a bottle of Petit Verdot. That's the 2022. Run.
Yeah, dig a 15-foot hole in your yard and bury a bottle.
Keep it safe and keep it environmentally protected. And in 2030, pop it open, and it will be. This is good, by the way. So it's not like you're losing out by drinking it now, but it'll be more mature, and it will have. I think you could enjoy it more even.
Yeah, I mean, I draw a lot of inspiration from the Northern Italian Barolos, because those are very nice and very finessed wines from jump. Like, they can't be released and called a Barolo if they haven't spent 2 years in the cellar and then 3 years in bottle. And so we're in 2024. You have to subtract 5 years for the available vintage. And then those wines, you can drink them at 5 years or 3 years old, really, in the bottle, and they're beautiful wines. But the Barolos are notoriously long-lived bottles, and they'll last for 30 to 60 years.
Wow. Wow.
In the worst conditions.
Yeah.
And so it's a unique experience to get to taste something that was born in 1980 and taste it in 2024. Because that's
nuts.
It's an irreplicable experience,
right?
Really,
right.
That bottle, that age, that time, that it's a time capsule, and you can only taste it like that once. And so I think that's why people get grabbed by wine in particular, because it's one of those things that's very old and very traditional, but it's also one of those things that you can extract that kind of nuance from it. If you get lucky enough to by chance find a bottle. I found a bottle in a cellar that was from 1976, and I popped it open, and you taste it, and as long as it's not sour and turned to vinegar, you will always smile.
Yeah, exactly.
You will always smile.
Yeah.
And you will just, like, if you have no words, you'll just go, huh.
Yeah.
And it's fucking fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you're doing that, because I think our oldest bottle is 2007 right now, which is pretty old.
Who's yours in your cellar?
In our cellar,
Right,
yeah,
cool.
our personal wine cellar. But we do have. I think we opened up one at COVID. We did a it was a podcast before we did podcasts, if you will. We did a live broadcast. We opened up this bottle at that point. That one I think was from the 90s, and it was 25 years old, right? So we opened up this bottle, and oh my gosh, and you're looking at, when you buy it, people are like, you can't open it up until like the one he's saying, right, for 2020, right? 2020, it's 2030. Sorry, 2030.
We don't want to go backwards.
It's probably gonna right. It's probably gonna be at its peak, right? So you buy a bottle and you're like, it's sitting there. And
that's why you end up with a lot of them, because if you only have a couple, then you're just staring at it. It's like, well,
yeah,
I gotta muddle the waters there so that I can forget about that one.
But there's your day wine too, right? You could still drink this as day wine, even though you're saving a bottle for 2030.
That's why we have package stores.
Or
or
vineyards that you can come in.
Yeah, you come out and
enjoy a bottle or a glass.
Taste what we're slinging and forget about your stuff down in your cellar. And, and add some of ours to your cellar.
There's always more wine to buy. I've found that out.
This is true because you don't want to say it too much because you get caught saying, hey, why taste the same thing twice? Where it's you want to have regulars as an establishment.
Not at all. There's a reason they call things like table red or something like that. It's because it's a great wine to have over and over and over again, and it goes well. Like the blend. Right? So you're going to have that blend. You can buy that blend and have dinner every night of the week, have a different dinner every night of the week, and have it be applicable. Yeah. Same thing, with the rosé, that kind of thing. So you can do that kind of stuff. So you can buy the wines that you want to hold back, and then you can just continue to buy the same wine and use it for different foods or meals, or even I could drink this by the fire, by the way. This would be fun.
There you go. Yeah.
That would be fun to just, light up a fire in the wintertime. And I mean, it's hard to think about right now because it's it's 78. It's 2 degrees hotter than they said it was going to get. Anyway, so it's 78 degrees out here. So it's tough to light a fire in 78 degrees, but the breeze is phenomenal still.
Yes.
Nice. And we've been having a great time out here. I mean, this has been a lot of fun for me. I don't know about you.
Absolutely.
He's probably like, I can't wait for
Let me talk about myself. Come on.
Yeah, but and that's the whole point, right? To talk about, you haven't actually said anything about yourself.
That's right. We talk about the wines.
You've talked about the wines, and so we've had a great conversation. Is there anything else that you'd like to throw out there? I think we're kind of close to the end here.
What time is it? Yeah.
It's like 3:26.
We got another 15-20 minutes if you want, but
we'll have to break out more wine for that. But or just keep on going with. Actually, we have a lot.
I didn't drink all the wine because I wanted to make sure I maintain my decorum. but now we can get reckless, I suppose.
Yeah.
we cover the good topics.
So what's the wine that I usually come in and buy? Do you remember?
You drink a lot of Crown
It's the Crown,
and
yeah.
Title.
Yeah, Crown.
The other red blends, and
Yeah.
so Crown I tell people is a very it's modeled after the Bordeaux, but it's using Pennsylvania varietals. It's got the other blends have backbone of Chambourcin, the Crown, the Title, and then the sweeter red called Amarage. It's fun when you do blends; you have to make up names for them, and so
Right.
So I pick a theme a little bit.
Or Red Blend 1, Red Blend 2, Red Blend 3. Right?
Yeah, those are project titles.
Probably not that.
My label designer yelled at me when I told him that when I sent him the names. He said, "No, we can't do that." He said, "You got to pick a name." I said, "All right, fine." But yeah, Crown is a dry, red, oaky, structured, dark fruit profile, and so I don't make Cabernet Sauvignon very often in Pennsylvania. Instead, I like to do these kind of fuller-bodied red blends using some of the other Cardinal Bordeaux varietals,
Right.
namely Cab Franc, Merlot, Petit Verdot, and Chambourcin, which I kind of lump into that group because it's a French-American hybrid that was born in Bordeaux. It used to be grown in amongst those fields at some point, according to the lore.
So for that, I would probably have a good beef bourguignon.
Oh yeah,
And part of that wine would go in it so that's the secret that people are like, oh, I'm cooking with wine, and they grab this. All right, I'm just going to call it basic bottle of wine. It's the cheapest, whatever, white or the cheapest red, and they buy it.
There are
and they
cheap
throw it in there.
red wines that you can get some good stuff, but
Yeah.
but a lot of times it's some jug.
But the other thing that you want, though, here's the key to a lot of cooking. Now, I'm not a chef, but I know this because I've done it once or twice. You put the wine that you're going to drink in the food that you're going to eat. And that actually creates this ambience of, like, it's great. I mean, there's just no, and so to put the Crown in a beef bourguignon would just be.
Yeah, I did something very similar, not beef, but a bourguignon-inspired dish with the Title and the Amarage because I wanted some of that sweetness.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But with beef, there's a lot more of that spice and that texture, and even you get some of the smokiness from the oak aging, which is kind of prominent on the Crown blend, into like a beef shank or whatever you're using for the bourguignon. And
it makes
a lot of fun. It's a
makes
lot
it
of fun
heartier. Yeah.
well, it does, and there's familiarity in stewed wine. Like in a laboratory, when you're doing an alcohol calculation, you do a mini distillation of your wine sample, and you cook the wine and you extract all the ethanol out of it, and you get your readings afterwards. But then you end up with this product that you've burned all the alcohol out of.
Right.
It's your starting wine, and you can smell it after you've exposed it to 180 to 200 degrees Celsius or Fahrenheit. For an extended period of time. It smells vinous still, but it's cooked the aromatic compounds, and it's a lot of fun, and to incorporate that into a dish, and then to have the fresh unadulterated wine with it. We started the conversation talking about things like that, and so you use what you have, you grow,
Yes.
and use what's archetypal or produced from the place, and you enter those dimensions and those layers of presentation.
And you get like Cat and Matthew's beef, right, from Campbellsville.
Yes, I'm unfamiliar.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, they have a beef farm adjacent to 1723.
Yes. Okay. Are
On
those the people with longhorns?
Yes,
They've got an emu. They've got some longhorns.
They got some serious livestock there, but yeah. So, but the key with that is, right. So you're gonna cook it, and don't worry if you cook it, the normal way, the alcohol part of it goes away. And
Correct.
then all you're left is the wine itself, and that flavor goes with the actual glass of wine. And so your kids can eat the meal, and you can drink the wine and eat the meal together.
Absolutely.
So you don't have to worry about that. It does add a little. It's another dimension. So if you're pairing the wine with the food like that, it
comes with some of the other things that are part of the basic balance of any good culinary experience. So like wine itself is mostly water, but it's an acid. And so any good complex dish, even if it's something at the beginning of the meal, in the middle of the meal, or at the end of a meal.
Right.
There's got to be balance on that plate, and you're incorporating the same tenets of taste experience and the tart, the sweet, the salty, the savory, the bitter, the textural, all of the different types of things that we have receptors for as part of our biology. The wine in cooking may reduce all the alcohol content, but you're left with an acid, a flavorful acid at that.
Yes.
We all know the experience of vinegar, whether it's white distilled apple cider, rice, or balsamic.
Yeah.
Those are all vinegars. They're all an acid component. There's different dimensions of flavor to that. Lemon, lime goes in a lot of different foods as a finish, or
yes.
And so it's a culinary tool to use, and if it's part of the through line as part of the presentation, it's another way that we can enjoy and experience this very humble product that is rotten grape juice.
I wouldn't necessarily classify it like that, but yeah, it's something different. Ooh, I'm going to keep going, I think.
I went back to the red bone before it gets too hot. I don't know.
I'm doing the finishing off the Petit Verdot.
That's kind of the nice thing about the walls of these, is that it semi-insulates, semi-protects.
It does have an insulation factor. I mean, if you're looking at this doesn't feel hot, so I think we're good to go on that. It's keeping the sun from beating down on it, like basic, like beating down on it. All right, so with that, what do you have anything new that you're thinking about bringing out?
There's a cellar full of new wines that'll be bottled and released within months. One of those being the Chardonnay that's growing over my shoulder, as well as a red, predominantly Cabernet Franc, just a field blend red, ideally within the next couple of months, from the 22 vintage. And then there's barrels full of some fruit from Lancaster County and Chester County that'll sit for another year. Reds, some of the Bordeaux varietals. I also made a rosé from Pinot Grigio that should be coming out really soon. It's a Pinot Grigio. The grapes have pigment to them. They're not quite as red as the Cabernet Franc or the Petit.
So it'll be a very, very light.
No, it'll look like this. Yeah, because if you treat that grape as you would potentially a red wine, do the full macerated fermentation. It was picked. What was it? October 10th, and it was pressed on September 10th. It was pressed on September 10 or 12 days later. 23rd,
okay,
like that. And so you're getting all of the texture, all of the color from the seeds and the
right.
skins. And then you have this really beautifully colored juice, and protect it and age it in stainless steel to just kind of let it clarify and let all those flavors come together and cold stabilize and all the things. That should come out within 2 months, ideally. Things get busy here with harvest, and so sometimes you plan hours ahead. Sometimes you get to plan days ahead, and if you're fortunate, you can plan a week in advance. But hey, when the grapes say that they need to be picked, we pick them. When the wine says it's ready to be bottled, if we have the dry goods, we bottle it.
Exactly. Do you bottle back there?
No, bottled down there.
Oh, you bottle down.
Yeah, the cellar's down
in the
below.
cellar. Okay.
Down there is where the tractor lives. And there's also packaged goods storage over there. There's,
Gotcha. Yeah.
There's climate control down there to keep the wine.
There's no lack of space, I think, which is...
You always run out of space in a winery.
Well,
because you're holding
right.
You're holding on to stuff for hours, or not hours, for years.
Yeah.
But no, there's plenty of space for people to roam and go for walks. I have trails cut. We live in a place that is always under threat of encroachment from deforestation or development. The whole you're an engineer that works civilly. You get all these things, and so to be able to partner with farming, but also just like have a bunch of trees out there and paths that you can walk through. Like I feel very indulgent sometimes when I start my day with a coffee and go for a walk down by the creek and back up through the vineyards.
Now I'm jealous. Now I'm really jealous.
But it's here for people to walk
but I can't,
and to do.
You haven't been to our house yet, but we live around the corner, and we have a creek of our own, so technically I could walk to our creek, but the walk itself wouldn't be as nice. The creek is nice.
No, you
but
work
the
up a
walk
sweat on this walk because
Yeah.
it's, there's no flat spot, and so you're walking up
No,
or downhill. But
walking
that's
the-
part of the fun.
Well, you're walking down, then back up.
Yeah,
So by
yeah.
the time you get back,
Yeah,
you're
it's
like,
easy to walk downhill and go see the splendor, and then
Yeah.
you got to hoof it back up to start your workday.
to get another cup of coffee.
So, sure, or a glass of wine. You know, you got to
No,
work it
but
off.
and so the view that we're seeing here is kind of, I think it's pretty well preserved. Is there going to be any development going on in the view?
I have no idea. You're
I don't-
above
I-
my pay grade.
I feel like a lot of it's been preserved.
There's about 35 acres of preserved forest land over there.
Yeah.
There's the whole White Clay Preserve on the borderland of Pennsylvania and Delaware.
Right. Oh no, there's hundreds of acres.
Oh yeah, and
that
it's all
we've hit up.
partially connected. And yeah,
Well, but just in our viewscape, I think there's not going to be, I think that the farm over there with the corn, I think that's preserved, if I'm not mistaken. So you won't see houses crop up over there. But anyway, it's the view. The view is great to look at. You can see it, you can in back of us, and it continues all the way around the whole back of the house. You come down a long lane, which is great, right? So
and in the springtime, there's
it's an
peonies
escape.
in bloom over there.
Yeah, I mean, this is like an escape kind of thing,
Yeah, we're set back from the road, and so
And yet somehow we still heard the ambulance earlier. That never happens. We're in the country, folks. It's like,
I suppose I don't hear it.
hopefully everybody's okay.
I didn't grow up out here.
But we don't normally hear that a lot, It's not like the city where you're hearing a siren every 5 minutes.
Sure.
But we still heard it. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes it's too quiet. I have the bird squawker to remind me, like, hey, there's still things trying to eat your grapes. You gotta stick it to work. But it's very quiet. It can't be too quiet. Nature that's quiet means that it's dead. You ever
Something's gone wrong. Yeah.
Like I've been to places where it's high desert, it's sand. There's little organic material in the ground dirt, and at night it gets quiet enough that you can hear the flap of the raven's wings above your head.
Oof.
Because there's no bugs singing.
Nice.
We have a beautiful creek that keeps a riparian area that's always got lots of different singing bugs and frogs and all types of things. You can hear the red tails hunting or the screech owls in the evening, or see the fireflies. It's important to maintain and steward a place that supports life and
Fosters it. Yeah.
and it is working in a certain system and symbiotically, because we are nothing without the microbes in the soil, because we need to eat, and
We all need to eat.
It's all part of that ecosystem.
So what about eagles and red-tailed hawks?
Lots of them.
Yeah.
I keep lots of brush piles. Everywhere that has trees, you collect sticks, or tree falls down, you gotta collect it and make up a pile. And so down, I'm tangling myself up. Down in the cut down there,
Yeah.
there's some big brush piles. I separate them. Don't want them to
Which
get too
fosters food for the
very much so.
the birds.
Yeah, keeps the rodents, the voles, the mice, the groundhogs, and all of those critters that are otherwise just they live out here. Keeps them all localized so that the red tails can come down and feed themselves, and the Cooper's hawks can come down and feed themselves. It keeps them away from the vines, keeps them away from the buildings. There's lots of fox roaming around. They leave me presents in the walkways in the mornings.
I'll bet, right?
Yeah, and there's lots of foxes. There's even owls and whatnot. And so having all of that ecology and fauna in the area is a lot of fun for the viewer.
Right.
But it also lets you know that there's an ecosystem that you can work within. Having those birds of prey in the air at certain times of the year keeps the robins and the starlings from coming in and thinking that this is a safe place to roost with abundant food supply.
Wow.
And
I didn't think about that. Yeah.
And things like groundhogs, they'll climb up in your trellis and they'll eat your grapes.
Right.
And
Groundhogs are
and
so wild.
the fox, they come and they manage the groundhog population.
They chase them.
It's like watching Animal Planet out here
Yeah,
sometimes.
so I feel, in about 3 minutes, we're going to break into a duet of
David
the
Attenborough.
Circle of Life from The Lion King.
And the eagles are fun because
They're really awesome to watch.
they're big and they
Yeah.
push the buzzards around. There's always some buzzards cleaning things up, and when the eagle's in town, the buzzards make way. Everybody likes to take pictures of them. They come and congregate at the Conowingo Dam, which is down the way.
Right.
It's having biodiversity is very cool. I've lived in a lot of different places, and having biodiversity is always an inherent. It always creates inherent value to a place, even if it's a place that people want to live or practice commerce or practice agriculture. It always adds to. Sometimes there's imbalances, like when there's car accidents and stuff because of an overabundance of deer population. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, it's hard
that people have to deal with that, but that's why we have to pay attention and be partners and stewards of this place that we like to cohabitate.
Yeah, I like that because that's another thing that people don't realize is that farming practices. Everybody thinks, farming practices destroy the land. They actually don't, because if you destroy the land, you wouldn't get any good grapes anymore.
That's all on
right.
how you
So
do
you
it.
have to balance all of that, and you have to make sure that you're, like you say, a good steward. And as a result of that, the farm thrives, and so does to the point where the local, birds pick the grapes, the deer want to eat the grapes, and so you've made this great, habitat for, food and whatnot for, local animals.
Anybody who's had a vegetable garden understands.
Yeah, exactly.
Anybody that has an apple tree understands. Agriculture is just the human practice of manipulating one's surroundings for, the preservation of life, whether, in the form of growing food, I suppose. And so,
some folks from Florida just drove up.
how about that? What time are we at?
We're at 3:45. You're gonna be
all right.
You'll be open in 15
Yeah,
minutes.
we've got 15 minutes. They can interview you. But no, yeah, it's important because there's certain practices. There's deserts that exist because of malpractice of agriculture and human movement on a piece of land.
Just mass destruction.
Whether it's a desert that is sand and vacant, or it's a desert that is asphalt and full of high rises.
Oof, that's true.
There's certain things that we can do in certain places, and if we don't think about it ahead of time, sometimes we back ourselves into a corner. But we share information. It's a cooperative industry.
It is,
among grape growers, but also among people who are in a food system. The wine is a staple part of a lot of different cultural food systems, even if it is also a controlled substance in other cultures. And so it's all It's all part of the nuance and part of the beauty and part of the participation in what we do.
Excellent. What else? You have anything else you want to share, or?
No, I think I've enjoyed our conversation. Thank you for coming out.
Yeah, thanks for having us. This has been a great Tipsy Tagalong podcast with Kyle Jones of the Acadian Wine Company. Thanks for everybody for joining in, and I'd like to let you know that in like 9 days, I think, we're going to be going to the Fall Festival. So Journey More Often is going to hit up the Fall Festival, and we're going to podcast live from the Fall Festival of Franklin Township, okay? And we expect, a couple thousand people to show up for that. There'll be a band, there'll be petting zoo. There'll be a mechanical bull, if you're so inclined. I'm not going to be on it. Otherwise, there'll be a reel with that on it, so if I'm on the mechanical bull. And then in November, we're going to actually hit up Northern Virginia. We're doing 4 wineries and a meadery in Northern Virginia, and it's packed in a week in November. So we're going to have fun with that. And again, drink responsibly. We can't say that often enough. Just have fun. And above all else, enjoy life. Journey more often.
Cheers.
Cheers.